All good. All right, good evening, Danvers. Today is June 10th for our school committee, and we'll first start with our call to order, our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'll start off by reading Danvers Public Schools mission statement. Danvers Public Schools is a dynamic community of independent learners dedicated to respect, responsibility, creativity, and the pursuit of academic and personal excellence. This meeting is being broadcast on Danvers Community Access Television. I'd also like to ask if anyone else in the audience is recording the proceedings today. Okay. No one is, and we'll start off with items of interest to the superintendent. Am I missing something?
No,
Okay.
you're good. I'll defer to the school committee because I have a pretty substantial update.
All right, does anyone have any items of interest on the school committee? All right.
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to acknowledge the passing of Eddie Moore, who was a good friend of Sean and good friend to the town of Danvers. Everybody knew Eddie, and he was extremely dedicated to the athletics and the kids in this town. Everyone knew him. He's a wonderful gentleman, and we're sorry to hear of his passing. The other mention is Larry Crowley, former director of recreation, also passed away. And again, someone who was a longtime friend of the schools in terms of making sure that they worked with us to just have a good recreation program for our kids. And Larry was another, just a gentleman through and through. So I just want to acknowledge both those passings.
Absolutely.
If I may, I'd just like to bring attention to district leadership and DHS leadership and staff for putting on a fantastic graduation this weekend. Everyone had a great time. Kids were celebrated, and it was an incredibly enjoyable day. So thank you to everyone.
You guys covered that. I don't want to be peer pressured.
Nah, it's all right. It was a beautiful day at Danvers Stadium and an absolutely phenomenal ceremony, and congrats to all of our graduates. I do have an item of interest. I just want to acknowledge our superintendent, Mr. Bauer, the negotiating team of Eric Crane, Josh, the support from Pam Crum, Steve Bartha, Mary Warners, and just everyone that was involved in negotiations with the Teachers Association. I believe
Kim Bevan.
And Kim Bevan. Can't forget Kim Bevan. And I know that the association is a vote away, and we expect that to hopefully move along, and by the end of the week, we'll vote and get it resolved. So again, kudos to the team. Absolutely phenomenal job, and and I think everyone is happy with the outcome. So that was my only other item. So thank you. And now, items of interest for the superintendent.
Thank you, Chair. All right. A lot of good stuff tonight. So we have some recognition, the Kiwanis Club donations, the achievements Mary Wormers will present, special education audit, I'll give an update, then we have presentation about our strategic plan, the update moving forward. So we had a wonderful breakfast on May 30th, DEEP, which is a great partner of our schools. They support many programs. They provide teacher scholarships to provide for their students, as well as supporting our Great DECA program. Here is a picture of some of the retirees that were honored at the breakfast. It was a wonderful time. So I think at this time, Chair, if you have anything you'd like to say about our retirees, and we're certainly going to miss them, and just an outstanding group. I'll read their names off, but if anything you'd like to add.
On behalf of the committee, we want to thank them for their years of service. It's, looking at the list, it looks like a very long, it's a long list, and they've all had quite a tenure here. So again, thank you from everyone, and I don't know if anyone has anything specific to call out on behalf of the retirees.
Nope. Okay. So we had a list Teresa Collins, a reading specialist for 30 years in our district. And just to note, this is just service in our schools. Some of these teachers came to us and have a lot more years. Maureen Carroll, special education teacher at Thorpe for 35 years, remarkable. Maria Leslie, world language teacher at HRMS, 16 years. Jeannie Clausen, world language teacher at HRMS and DHS for 10 years, but I think 35 plus years in her career. Cheryl George, biology teacher at the high school, 17 years. Jill Porter, school psychologist, 16 years at the high school. Diane Chupret, district technology help desk coordinator for over 23 years and worked very closely with all of our technology. Kathy Knowles, teacher aide at Riverside School for 10 years. Diane Susi, teacher aide at Riverside School for 18 years. Judy George, teacher aide at Danvers High School for 8 years, and she is also known for her dog Peanut, her therapy dog she'd bring around to the school, which was awesome. Joan Shea, teacher aide at the high school for 6 years, and Sharon Gilardi, teacher aide at Riverside for 18 years. So I felt it was an awesome breakfast, the opportunity to recognize all of our retirees and have them go off, and we appreciate all their service to our students, thousands and thousands of students throughout their careers. Okay. All right. The next thing is some recognition for our Danvers Kiwanis Club. So if Gayla Bartlett is here and Linda Swinnerton, could you come up to the podium, please? Just want to bring some recognition. The Kiwanis Club has provided, no problem. But we're grateful to the donations of the Kiwanis Club, and we appreciate them stepping up to help us, and just wanted to give our gratitude from the district as well as from the school committee.
Well, thank you very much. It's Kiwanis's mission is to help the children in the community, and we were thrilled when we got this opportunity from the Thorpe and the Riverside School to provide them with some much-needed equipment for the indoor and outdoor play area. I've been to Thorpe and saw it, and I'm going to Riverside this Thursday. So again, it was our pleasure. Come and ask us anytime. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and Gayla will be reaching out to you as well. You've supported us a lot throughout the year with our PACs and with our schools too, so we just appreciate the collaboration. Thank you. Appreciate you. All right. So the next piece is the final accomplishments. These accomplishments are based on our district improvement plans, or school improvement plans. Mary Wormers and her team put together, they went through the data just to see how we've ended the year. Just a word of note, some of the data will come through next fall as it's tied to the MCAS or vocal data and some of the MCAS data as well. So we thought it was a good time to come back and just highlight the areas, our accomplishments for the year.
And just a few months ago, we were here giving you our mid-year accomplishments. I think the budget process pushed our mid-year accomplishments more to like 2/3 of the year. So these are kind of like quick updates on the final accomplishments that have happened. So what I'm going to do today is provide three updates on the three goals that we have. The first one is safe and supportive schools. The second one is coherent curriculum instruction and assessment. And our third goal is diversity, equity, inclusion. So if we start with goal one, we have safe and supportive schools. And our goal was to like administrators, faculty, and staff to create a safe and supportive learning environments and schools for students so they would feel safe, seen, valued, heard, and that they felt they belonged. And so what we did is, one of the first things is Superintendent Bauer did was establish or grew the safety committee to have more stakeholders, to have the Danvers Police Department, to have the Danvers Fire Department, the DPW, and the union as stakeholders in that committee. So that community, and you'll be hearing more of that on his entry plan. In the spring, we also had a MTSS development team, and we've had MTSS academically in our schools, but we really focused in this study group on behavior, and the result was that each school team set their vision for their behavior MTSS, and they also began to work on their behavior matrices that they will start to implement in the fall, so that students are clear about what the expectations for their behavior and for the school community in all areas of the school. So that's going to be exciting to watch. The elementaries convened sense of belonging teams. They've done some reports to you over the year about what the work there, but that, again, brought the feeling of belonging for our students and staff in their schools. Holton Richmond instituted what we call a social emotional survey using what the instrument is called PAIR. And I'll share that data with you a little bit in the next slide. And then Danvers High really worked on their community block program. They established it, but each year they don't rest on their laurels. Each year they grow the work that they're doing. And so they really worked on an ninth grade WIN block curriculum, which is really focused on executive functioning skills. And then they also worked strongly with Drew Betts coming in as athletic director. He really grew the athlete leadership program and really worked with on the athletic environment to have more of a safe and supportive teams. So next year, as Superintendent Bauer told you, that we're waiting on the vocal data. These were some of the indicators we were looking at, especially around bullying. We started working with Panorama, and we are exploring the use of the SEL survey instruments. And our study group was very interested in those instruments, and I'll talk further about that. And Superintendent Bauer is going to use, as he brings on the strategic plan, we are going to be using the Panorama survey as like both pre and post assessments on how our school and district climate is growing. So I just want to give you a sample of what the data would look like. This is the PAIR data from Holton Richmond, and they do a collection of data from students, and it's students self-report on their SEL skills or competencies or how they feel. And so in the fall, we got a report that you see with the green, yellow, and red. It's kind of a tiered system, and it's around how students felt about their SEL with their competencies, and it showed you, like for Holton Richmond, 42.3% of the kids really felt those kids are strong and they're okay with how they are doing with their SEL competencies. And then the assessment kind of showed that 40.4 kind of are in that, we've got to watch kind of list, and then there were about 17.3% that are in that red, where we really had like social workers and guidance counselors kind of looking at those students and really making sure that, that they're doing okay in school. The bottom chart kind of shows you the percent change that happened from the fall administration of the survey to the spring. And what they really are highlighting, these are the top SEL competencies or skills that kids had the largest change in from the fall to the spring. So for example, being action-oriented, that changed from when they came in the fall to when they left. Some other great, results from this was like critical thinking. It's great that from the fall to the spring you saw a change that they felt they were doing more critical thinking. Empathy is a huge part of the social emotional learning competencies, and that was great to see that that's one of the top growth areas. So we take this data and really kind of think about it as they start to design more for the fall. And going back to that Panorama survey, when we were working with the behavior in the study groups, looking at Panorama and administrating this a survey like the PAIR survey to the elementary and the high school was very enticing for them. They really want to get that data from the kids, so that's more to come next year. Goal 2, curriculum instruction assessment, I abbreviated it up there. So we were talking about how do we use formative data is kind of set as our goal. At the elementary level, we've reported to you mid-year, but we do have our final year data that we're going to present in a minute on the slide. But we want to remind you that we implemented a new phonics program, K-5, and adjusted by doing that and really looking strongly at a structured literacy program versus like a balanced literacy program we had in the past. We adjusted our screeners and diagnostics to align with this new instruction and assessment with the current research on reading. So while we didn't meet the 90% benchmark that we set like at the beginning of our strategic plan, we have made major gains, and you'll see that in a little bit. Our elementary math students, I think all of you know about ST Math, and a lot of you have visited schools, and you see the celebrations that all the kids have about that, but we exceeded our goal, and you'll see in a minute, on the completion of the ST Math syllabus. Holton Richmond Middle Schools exceeded their goals with the iReady growth, and we're going to see that in a few minutes, and we'll talk about that. And high school, the grade 9 WIN block, as I told you, is fully implemented, and the focus on formative assessment by the PLC leaders, they're facilitators that facilitate the course level groups like Algebra 1 or teachers or like 9th grade English teachers. They really focused a lot on the formative assessment practices and making immediate adjustments to their practice during the school year. So the next slide shows the reading data, and it shows you how the kids have grown from September across to June, and you'll see, we saw a jump from 55% to 73.25% in K-2 from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, so that's pretty good growth on our benchmarks. And then for grade 4 and 5, we had 66.29% in September, and we grew to 90.3 in grades 4 and 5. So I think a big part of this growth, too, is our strengthened implementation of the multi-tier system of support for literacy across 4 times a week. And we had all hands on deck during those intervention blocks so that students were really getting that true small group instruction. And then our results from our June literacy screener, just as we did at the beginning of the year, we sent home results in the mail to families. The families will get results of their individual child's literacy screening results in their report card. Let's see, math. So our ST math, we actually have, as of Tuesday, May 7th, we've completed 99% of the syllabus. So I feel like in June, I can safely say that we've completed 100% of the ST Math syllabus. So that was great things. And this really, we saw a big improvement as we've gotten stronger with the implementation of ST Math. We definitely saw a correlation with our gains in the MCAS scores. Holton Richmond, they use iReady. They began using it last spring, but they now started to use it again now fall and spring, so we've completed a full year. And here shows both in ELA and math. You'll see 2 bars. The top bar is the spring administration, and the bottom, the lighter color bar is, or the faded, is the fall administration. So you can see that the green, what we want to see is the green getting bigger, and we got to see that happening. So we saw a 44% increase in the number of students who are mid or above grade level from the beginning of the year to now, and the same thing in math is larger, but they had, unfortunately, the reason why it is larger is that we had a smaller number of students being on grade level at the beginning of the school year. We have still more work to do, and I think we all know that from looking at our MCAS scores, but I think this is at least a positive change. It's a change in the right direction, and that hopefully will pan out in our MCAS scores as well. And as Superintendent Bauer said, that all that data comes in the fall, and we, in October and November, present to you our achievement scores, not only the MCAS scores, but we also do high school, some of the high school data that comes later on as well. So again, because it's the spring, the high school data is not is available, but we do have some updates for you. I think we've talked a lot about the 1-8 Foundation Discovery Program that we did around applied learning. That has just been a huge initiative that's been taken on by Danvers High School and really working on growing the pathways. And we've been accepted. We've won, not every school that was in this Discovery and Learning Program got to move on to the leadership phase of this institute, and we have in Danvers, so we're excited about that. And our goal is, and what the work is for this next school year, is to add courses that have an applied learning focus and really implement the pathway onboarding fully in the high school next year. The high school also has Carnegie Math and Coaching, so they've done a lot. They're preparing us for the geometry implementation next year. Danvers High also, through the community block, worked to reduce the number of at-risk students through academic academic interventions and monitored student attendance, kind of getting that chronic absenteeism number lower. And then, again, I told you about the formative assessment work that we did, so we really worked with those PLC leaders across the year. So, all right, finally, goal 3, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is to, our school community, our district community worked collaboratively to build relationships, value and affirm diverse identities, and create opportunities for engagement for students and their families. This one, again, is vocal data, student perception, how they feel they belong in school. We also worked in our final year of, as you probably heard me say a few times, CPRLA, it's Culturally Responsive Practices Leadership Institute, and that was a full year of review of our practices in Danvers. So we had 2 on-site reviews by their consultants, and then we had to do a presentation for a case study, and Eric and Josh, we attended that presentation. And that was a rigorous presentation because we got a lot of feedback from stakeholders that were in the room, but then also, and our consultants that are coming to work on the strategic plan were there. And we also had students in there, and I think one of our students gave us probably the best feedback you could get and work on. So we'll talk about that later, the results of that. We really worked hard to have a stronger engagement of families who don't traditionally participate in open houses and conferences. You know, in the old days, the joke was, you know, the A students' families were coming to conferences. So we really worked hard at getting our families that might have some barriers to getting to these conferences and open houses and try to break those barriers down. We also used Reach My Teach to really be able to communicate with families in their first language. So it was a great program that it made the ease of interpretation, made that much more accessible. And then finally, we've transitioned 92 new students, although a few less because some students have moved, into the Danvers Public Schools. And the first wave came at the beginning of the school, and then second in January toward the Emergency Assistance Program. So that was a big thing. And then quickly, here's some of the recommendations that we got coming out of the site visit and case study, and Superintendent Bauer is going to elaborate on those more later. That the main recommendation is that we should create a process for consensus on our equitable learning environments definition and framework. And what you see on the right is our framework that we developed over the years with the CPRLA. And they also think that we really should work on aligning the framework with course structures in our district and schools, as well as our professional learning. So I think the professional learning is happening, but then it's around the structures that are both in the school and district level. And then some of the other recommendations is that, you know, to use this framework to guide our district initiatives. So we'll be using that in the strategic planning process. They also recommended create a vision for the portrait of a graduate, which again, is going to come out of the strategic planning process. They recommend that we develop strategies for diverse hires and for those teachers or staff with the ability to foster an equitable learning environment. And then finally, they want us to develop and norm better systems and processes for examining data at the team, school, and district levels, including trend and subject group data, like disaggregating our data to connect climate and academic measures. So all that will be taken into consideration as we move in forward the next school year and years after.
Thank you.
Thanks. Sorry,
Anyone have
it
any
was
questions
fast.
or comments?
Couple of quick ones, real quick. Well, first of all, as a comment, love to see the reading scores at the elementary level. That seems like a big step.
Yes.
And the fact that there's improvement on the math side, really excellent. You gave us a good rundown of what's been done in terms of the equity piece. And you mentioned trying to get parents to come to open houses who don't often or don't
Right.
usually come. How did that go? I know you mentioned you tried to do it, but
Yeah.
did we have any success? Or?
We did. I think because using that Reach My Teach system allowed us to make contact in a more accessible way for the families. And then as well, we had teachers reaching out by telephone to invite them to come. And then there were some people that had transportation barriers, and we worked to get around the transportation barriers so they could get to school back and forth from the school to their home.
Good.
So
Getting the parents involved is
yes, it's key.
generally a good thing.
Yeah, and at Danvers High, we actually did, for all our English language learner families, we piloted a family night in the spring. So if the language was a barrier, we had them come in and we had interpreters in, and we really try to crack the code of high school, because high school has so many different logistics that goes along with it. I mean, not only Power School and Google Classroom, but understanding the opportunities that are available to their children. So that was really a great success. I mean, we had one of our students being a translator for us, so he did a great job.
3 languages.
Yeah, he could speak 3 languages, so
Wow.
he did a great job with Superintendent Bauer and interpreting for him. And it really helped us think about how we do this at each of the schools as we move forward into the fall. So we're gonna look to see if we can put some of those structures in place in the fall.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other?
I actually have a question on goal 1, safe and supportive school. Is that me?
Never mind.
Oh, okay. It's on the assessment scores where we show the 3 different tiers of support need.
Yep.
And mean, this is a survey across 686 students, and I was wondering, how is, it sounds like a self-assessment.
Yes, the students are self-reporting.
Okay, they're self-reporting, and
Yeah.
I'm wondering, how do they come up with, I mean, what's an example of a question of a student who demonstrates emotional control? Like, how do they frame that?
They have like written in kid-friendly language. They have certain, and they triangulate it, so it's not just one question. They say,
Okay.
oh yeah, he has no self-control. You know what I mean? They have lots of
Right,
different
that's kind of what I
questions
was curious.
that indicate that, and they pull that together.
Okay. And is there a plan to address like the tier 3 coming out of that? Like,
Yeah.
were students like identified, and was there some
Yes,
follow-up
they
work?
did. As soon as you see that, they dug down and they saw who the kids were, and that they try to keep an eye on that. Again, I think they're really working on finding a trusted adult in the school, so the Holton Richmond did a lot of work on that, because that's the key, so that finding an adult that the child feels comfortable talking to and relating to. But that definitely the administration and the counselors had eyes on those kids.
And maybe it's an anecdotal question, but did the teachers and the staff find the assessments to correlate accurately to students that were in specific tiers? Like, was it, I don't know if it was anonymous or if everyone knew where everyone
No,
landed?
yeah, this individual, behind this is individual kid reports, and actually,
Okay.
yeah, we could, if a parent ever wanted to know, they could share that information with the parents, so, yeah. So, I don't know, that was a great question, so I'll ask the middle school, and can
No,
report back to
absolutely.
you.
Yeah, because I was really curious to see, like, how does a kid assess themselves as assertive and
Yeah.
reflection and all that
Yeah.
other stuff, and what kind of follow-up?
Yeah, we actually have a meeting
was
with the
available.
pair people on Wednesday to talk about next school year.
Okay. Okay, no other questions on that, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is just a quick update regarding our special education audit. We've begun the process, and really it's critical that we're doing this now. The timing's perfect as we're bringing aboard our new Director of Student Services, July 1, as well as really a whole new administrative team for student services. So everything boils down to what's most effective for students, as well as cost effective for the district. So the consultants have been in, and they've gone through a number of interviews. They're doing all sorts of review on documents. And when they come to their findings, they'll bring this to the school committee. I'm anticipating September. We'll set up a time where they'll come and do a presentation in terms of the findings, recommendations, commendations, which will help us for continued planning. Hopefully the timing works out very well with the strategic plan as well. So this is just a listing of things that they've done in terms of the interviews. They're reviewing our budget stuff, staffing, and really just looking at similar school districts to see how we compare and match up. So it's a comprehensive audit. Again, the timing's perfect. So that's pretty simple. I don't know if the committee has any questions for me.
No, I think we've gone through this before, and you really do get some great feedback and ideas for improvement. And that's, all feedback is a gift, right?
All feedback is a gift, and certainly feedback is only as good as you use the feedback and take it and implement it, and knowing that we are ripe for this feedback.
Yes.
I really appreciate the community engagement here, like including CPAC and the administrative assistants, et cetera. It seems like it's going to be a pretty thorough assessment, so I really look forward to this.
Yeah, and they may want, at some point, want to talk with school committee as well, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've gone through the second cycle today. CPAC was in this afternoon, so that's good stuff.
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to call up Sean Gallagher and Lisa Furlong, and they're going to work with us on the strategic plan. The timing is ripe, as we say that we've come to the end of this year and looking to bring forth a strategic plan. And the rationale in terms of this particular plan is that we want one that's actionable, not one that will sit on the shelf, one that includes as many stakeholder voices as possible, but creates an actionable plan of operation. Okay, so I know they're jumping on, and in your folder, it should be under strategic plan. It was, let's see where that is.
I think Mr. Bauer's gonna jump off,
No,
right?
you gotta, I think you have to get off the airplane.
I have to get off of mine, so then that way.
I don't know, we'll see.
Go where the displays.
Yeah,
Is this it?
thank you. Yes.
All right.
Is that it? Anything else I need to do? Do what? Thank goodness I have lots of help.
That's right.
We all need it. I'll have it right here too, Eric, if you want. Oh, you got it.
There you go.
All right.
All right, well, first of all, I just want to thank the committee for having us here tonight to kind of give an overview that we feel was a very successful process. And as Mr. Bauer said, I've been in education for 30 years and been part of multiple strategic plans. And a lot of times you go through that process, but it really doesn't drive the district. So what we did in Newburyport is we took a future-focused approach to strategic planning. And we feel, just as Mr. Bauer said, it included multiple stakeholders, but it also provides an organization, as we go through the presentation, that you'll see where everyone fits. So part of the overall planning is the vision piece, and that ties back to the portrait of a graduate or portrait of a learner that all community members have a say in. And then you get into the strategic initiatives, and that strategy piece is usually from the school committee, your district leaders, and your principals. That's kind of the organization of the vision. And then what we feel was the most important aspect of our strategic planning is the tactics. And that's your faculty and support staff. Those are the experts that are on the ground level that enact the vision of the community. So we'll run through some slides today. So as we say here, it's a future-focused process. And the first piece that we do is figure out where Danvers is today. Listening to Ms. Warmer's report and kind of seeing the work that's already gone in to a lot of the great things that you're doing, that would obviously tie directly into the planning process for us. And then more importantly, working with the community to look at where we need to go in the future. So we can go to the next slide there. Thank you. So for us creating the plan, we start with, when we work with the stakeholders and creating the vision, so that's the community members, parents, students, is really to start to look at the trends of today. And we're going to go through a few slides here and just look at some of the trends of technology, but really take a look at what we need to know and understanding how learning is changing, and then how these trends will be impacting education. And as we know, with the advancement of technology, AI, augmented reality, mixed reality, it's fast and furious. So we want to position ourselves as a district to make sure you have the flexibility and adaptability to address those issues as they're coming. So for us, as we look at that, as we look at where we are today, where we need to be tomorrow, but really an aspect of our strategic planning is really to celebrate the work that you already have in place. And growing up on the North Shore, there's a lot of great Danvers traditions that part of the process is we really celebrate a lot of that success. And then we build upon that in the future. Do you want to jump into? Yeah, we're like, 1-2 punch right here. So.
The first step in the process is really looking at getting educators and community stakeholders and students even a part of the process to explore what's going on in the world, what are trends that we need to look at, so that as you're doing your planning, your future forward. So everything that we're doing is kind of based on a futuristic model of looking out 10 years, but taking action in the first 1 or 2 years. So we wanted to start by just showing you, the first step is to think a little bit about the future and where the future is taking us in terms of education. A couple of just quick examples for you. AR, augmented reality, virtual reality, and the metaverse. Happening today, in the world today, is a global collaboration village put on by the World Economic Forum. They put this in place. It's you're in on headsets, you're leaders around the world exploring some of the issues that need to be addressed in the world through the metaverse with support from international tech companies to not replace the face-to-face meetings, but to enhance them, to make people from around the world be able to, for example, go witness the global mangroves and the ecosystems in places around the world with scientists who are right there without having to leave your room. How does this affect education? So that'll be one of the questions that we begin to look at is, we've got the metaverse, we've got augmented reality, we've got virtual reality. What's that gonna be coming down the road for Danvers Public Schools? So for example, right now today in Massachusetts, through the Massachusetts General Hospital, students can attend a counseling session. You have up on there your goal to increase, enhance supports for students who need social emotional supports. But a lot of times districts are struggling to find actually the people who are qualified to do that in Danvers or in the site that they're in. Through Mass General Hospital, students can put on that headset and be a part of a counseling program or session with counselors from all over the state or out of the state even. So it's just an example of the kind of trends that you want to be thinking about so that your planning is forward-thinking. AI, you want to speak to that?
There you go. So this is just another example of AI in the classroom. And this is out of MIT Technology Review. And just from this one magazine, you can just see some of the, how AI is gonna be impacting education. And then this article in 58 is teaching the biliterate brain to read. So the biliterate brain is students have textbooks, hard copies of literature or reading materials, and then also switch over to technology. So there's a whole article and understanding of that. And as we were saying earlier, this technology is coming fast and furious within the world, within business. So when you start looking at Portrait of a Graduate, like what are the skill sets that our kids are gonna need today to be successful when they graduate Danvers High School? These are some of the conversations that as we work on the strategic planning with the community, with teachers and the administration, you start wrapping your head around this. Like, what is this gonna look like in Danvers Public Schools? And then what I really love about this is going back to SEI. So all of those soft skills, when you look at the top 10 skills from the World Economic Forum of what businesses are looking for in their employees, when you go through that and you go through the social emotional learning, PBIS, all of the programs that we have in place in public schools were actually transferable. Those skills are transferable in the business world, in the workforce of today. So that's also an aspect of tying in the work that's going on in the schools, in the public schools and Danvers schools, tying it into this is why this work is important. This is why empathy is important. Grit, resilience, all of those things that we're teaching in public schools, in Danvers public schools, is really going to be transferable skills when the students graduate. So these are some of the trends as we start to set the stage and have these conversations in phase one. The other piece, just some more research, taking a look at the Pew Research Center. Do you want to jump on that one?
One of the areas of trends that we explored when we started doing this work in Newburyport was the census data. So the Pew Center will kind of put together bits and pieces of the census data. You can just see a range of trends that as educators, as educational leaders, as the policymakers in the district, there's a lot of stuff that you're gonna wanna think about, that you're gonna wanna have foresight on, and all of this conversation sort of sets the stage for like, what are the top like sort of 3 to 5 strategies that we might be going after? So for example, like midway down here, 1 in 4 US teachers say their school went through a gun-related lockdown in last year. But you see in your superintendent's policy, step 1 was to create a multifaceted safety plan that included all of the stakeholders here in your community. So you kind of are like beginning to align, here's the trends that are out here, here's where we're already in alignment with the work that we're doing, our strategies, and bring that down to the tactical work of like, what's the day-to-day stuff that we need to have happen. And just one last little piece.
Yeah, this is our favorite one. And we always talk about preparing our students today, this generation, for jobs that do not exist. And in this is an article of this MIT student that is now AI prompt engineer. So this is another job that has just become in existence in the past couple of years. And I think that's the challenge for all of us in education today, is giving our students the job skills that are going to be necessary for them to be successful in a world where we don't know what these jobs are going to be looking like. So it's exciting, but can also be, for educators, a little scary at times too. So this, I'll jump in quick and then you can. So this all really stemmed from us coming, believe it or not, out of COVID. And there was a lot, I mean, we could probably do a 4-hour presentation on that. But we kind of took aspects of COVID and the pandemic and looked for a silver lining. So one of the silver linings that we were doing, and I think all of us, Danvers Public Schools, all the schools across the nation, is we were planning days ahead or weeks ahead or months ahead with uncertainty, where we didn't have the data, we didn't have evidence, we didn't have answers, but yet we were planning and modifying and adapting as public schools. So we kind of, as we were developing our strategic plan and taking a look at that futuristic approach, because it's almost like the same thing right now that we're facing, especially with the advancement of technology, is that unknown of what the world's going to look like. So with that being said, there was a researcher, a futurist, Amy Webb, that really came up with ideas of businesses and successful businesses and their ability to adapt. So we kind of took her model of how those successful businesses adapted to this uncertain world, and then we kind of tied it into our strategic planning. And I'll let you jump in on that one.
If you look at, I don't know if you have this in front of you or if you just want to look behind you, but if you're watching on TV. So Webb's model is a nice way for us, I think, to approach strategic planning with the idea that there is a degree of uncertainty in the strategic plan that you're going to develop. So if you look across the bottom of the cone, you see that you're thinking out 1 to 2 years, then you're thinking out 2 to 5 years, and then again 5 to 10 years. With more and more as you look across the top, in 1 to 2 years, you have a ton of data. You have reading data, you have data on students' SEL, you have a variety of different pieces of evidence that give you a certain degree of certainty about the work that you need to do. But as you go out 2 to 5 years or 5 to 10 years, you have less certainty. And so what the model says to you is, in your strategic plan, you're going to first create a vision, which is sustainable, something that can last across a certain degree of uncertainty. And then you're going to have your strategies, which are things that are a little bit more flexible, but you're not changing them all the time. And then you're going to have your tactics, which are a little bit more flexible and able to change. So this type of planning, what we found, is allows you to create a more responsive organization. Schools are sort of bureaucratically quite slow, and what COVID, I think, showed us is that we needed to be able to hit the ground running, and a circumstance happened, our tactics needed to 100% change, but the vision of the Newburyport Public Schools for our students remained the same. How could we keep that vision going in the face of the pandemic? We had to change our tactics. Probably some of our strategies were adjusted as well. So that's kind of the model that schools are, there's a lot going on, and even just in Mary's presentation, she's working on 17 different initiatives. How do they all fit together? We found this model sort of helped us fit everything together and create a story for the district. So to kind of keep going with that, I'm just going to give a little more definition to how this all kind of plays together. The vision is is out there. It's like your lasting piece. We in Newburyport call that our portrait of a graduate. A lot of high schools call it their portrait of a graduate, and many districts have sort of taken that portrait of a graduate vision and maybe they tweak it to a portrait of a learner so it feels a little bit more relevant for the elementaries. But in Newburyport, we've stuck with portrait of a graduate. That's our vision. You need to have a clear vision. Where are we headed? What skills, knowledge, mindset do we want Danvers Public Schools students to have 10 years from now, 2034? Phase one. And then you're going to get into the strategies. The strategies really keep the organization focused. For Newburyport, we call them our reimagine. So we reimagine teaching and learning. We reimagine our operations. We reimagine our stakeholder, our community of stakeholders. So you pick kind of those big buckets, which Danvers really kind of already has in those 3 goals you have laid out. But you're tying everything through those to your vision, and then backwards down to your tactics, which is the bottom of the cone, which are really your 1 and 2 year cyclical goals. How are we doing? How do our tactics fit into our strategies? And how is that all getting us towards our vision? And you're trying to get everything aligned so that there's a continuous story throughout your whole district of people who are all doing jobs from custodial to speech to core teaching. How are they all together kind of in this cone heading in the same direction?
So as you look at the breakdown, so the other piece that we felt that was really helpful is it provides role clarity for everybody that's involved in your strategic planning, from the community members to your school committee to selectmen. It really has everyone with a clear understanding of their role within the strategic plan. So when we look at the first piece is really embracing the entire community. They collaborate to set the vision. And really the essential question is, what are the skills and understandings that our students are going to need to be successful in the real world? The next piece is where the district leaders, the administration, the school committee really start setting the strategies. So you take all of the visioning aspects and then it falls into certain buckets or certain strategies. As Lisa said, there's already been a lot of work that's gone in. It almost looks like you have your strategies already developed. And then this was, I found as an administrator and as a superintendent, and the positive feedback we received from our faculty and support staff. It was really the first time that they've had buy-in, because the tactics falls on the educators to follow the vision. So it's, you have the people that you've hired, the experts in education that's gonna make the strategic plan happen, that's gonna work towards that vision. So that's why I think for us, as we went through this process with our community, and we continue to do it, it's alive, it's breathing. Every year we're modifying, but the teachers could embrace and he felt really involved as part of the process. So when you look at engaging the whole community, so step one is a series of focus groups that are designed to help the district clearly define the vision of the learner, vision of your graduate, which includes multiple people. Step two is visioning stakeholders. So it'll be developed, we had different workshops, and you develop 3 to 5 strategies that are really gonna guide the district and provide the direction for the tactical work. And then step 3 is the vision and strategy sets the direction for your school improvement plans and your educator goals. So when we develop every year our school improvement plans or the educator goals from every educator and every improvement plan, we're all moving in the same direction. It all ties back to our vision and ties back to strategic planning. I'm going to do the next one, how it kind of.
So this, just to give you a little bit more clarity, the vision is your portrait of a learner or portrait of a graduate or whatever Danvers decides to call it. And a lot of stakeholders are typically involved in sort of setting what that looks like. And if you haven't seen one before, it's usually like a set of attributes that portraits of a graduate will, for example, in Newburyport, literate across all the disciplines is one of ours. Well, social, emotionally, and physically, civically engaged. We have 5 big attributes that is our goal. When young people finish Newburyport Public Schools, they have those. And we got to those through these conversations around what's it gonna look like in 12 years when young people graduate? What do they need? What will be the skills? What will be the knowledge? And what will be the mindset? And those 3 kind of big areas usually cover pretty much. Knowledge was a tricky one. People feel really strongly about like what core piece of information you should or shouldn't have, and what we got to that with that. So that will be kind of the first piece, is building a portrait of a learner, portrait of a graduate, whatever Danvers decides to call it, as a vision, that outside part of the cone. And then the second piece, we talked a little bit, this is kind of just redundant a little bit, but just getting a key group of stakeholders, policymakers, teacher leaders, administrators, who clearly define those tactics, that second level. And again, that will be like sort of Danvers deciding who's on that team, who's at that table. One thing that we really liked in Newburyport is everyone wants to be a part of the planning, and we wanted everybody to be a part of the planning, but one of the things that we heard from our teachers from a previous round of strategic planning was that some people who weren't professional educators were too in the weeds with some of the strategic planning that we were doing. So what we found is that the cone, defining the roles the way Sean explained them, really helped us to say, we would love to have you set the vision. We would love to have you, if you're a policymaker, a part of our key strategies. We want to leave it to the professional educators to decide what are the tactics and the best practices for education today to get us there. So that's kind of that last piece. I don't know if you want to speak to
Right.
that.
So this is how it all aligned for us, and this was obviously, it's a lot of work. It took us, throughout a year to really develop a comprehensive strategic plan that's living. So when you look at a district level, when we talk about aligning the tactics and the goals, you can see from the district level, from the school level, improvement plans and educators, how it all really just ties together. And every decision that we make, if it's budget, if it's hiring, we always go back to that strategic planning. So basically when we do the annual updates for us and superintendent and school committee, the outcomes, we report those out every year. We do annual updates on the goals and outcomes reported, school improvement plan, and the principals report that, and the councils to me. And then our annual education goals and educators is part of our evaluation process. Oh, did I miss
One of
one?
the things that can be super cumbersome in a district is that if you have a strategic plan that doesn't align with your DESE reporting, so all of this stuff that you see on the table, this is from the Department of Education. We were reporting twice. You had your strategic planning goals that you were reporting on, and then you had your educator evaluation goals or your school council plans. So we really were working to put that all together, that they are all driving in the same thing. So basically your educator goals, those are your tactical goals. Those are at the bottom of the cone there.
Great. And then last but not least, so we felt, and as I said, in my career, I've been, same with Ms. Furlong, we've been doing this a long time, but this collaborative approach, and then to really be planning that futuristic approach, I think really brought everyone together, and everyone had clear roles within the process, and I just think it was just overall a great success for us. And speaking to Mr. Bauer and his team, we were talking about some of this, and he's like, oh, that would be great if we could help you guys out also. So that's pretty much all we have for you. If you have any questions on that, or
It's a lot. But the good thing about Danvers, I think I worked on the first strategic plan we did back in 2001. So I think as a district, we were sort of ahead of the curve in terms of really developing and relying on a strategic plan. So the good news is this is not going to be foreign to our faculty, our administrators, but really it's what's the new vision going to be for this strategic plan, because the vision 20 years ago doesn't matter and doesn't apply. But I hope that it'll make the process easier and more fruitful, that we've been down this road and we're familiar with a lot of the terms you're talking about and the approach. So that I hope will be helpful.
Yes, yeah. And I think the goal for us too, it's because we're all in this together as all public educators. So our goal is to train the trainer model. As we all know, some districts will hire consultants from across the country, they come in. But what was really important for us is we did a grassroots up. So working with Mr. Bauer and his team, it's, you know, almost like best practice, and working with them, so they'll take the reins and continue the strategic planning. Because I think that's the best buy-in, is when you're from the superintendent to the principals to the faculty, support staff, community, students, everyone's working together. It really sends a strong message, and there's a lot of great ownership that way. So,
Do we have an idea what that schedule of engagement will look like come September, let's say?
I think for us, we wanted to kind of give an overview for the school committee, and then we plan on meeting over the summer and kind of breaking down what the timeline's going to be looking like for that. Yeah, we'll have a schedule, working with Mr. Bauer and his
Coming
team.
to our admin retreat at the end of the month, and hopefully, once we have our school committee retreat, if there's room on the agenda, I'd love to have them come to the school committee retreat as well. Because I have already a number of parents lined up that want to be part of the process, which is awesome, as well as other stakeholders. I think that's really the key to this. And that was the fun of this year, is meeting a lot of different families and stakeholders, and I've thrown that out there, so they're all looking forward to this.
We did one of our, it was really beneficial. We had school committee, you have selectmen, but we had city council, and we did a whole workshop for a 90-minute workshop. And I think that was really important for the city officials to be, you know, a big part of this, and really understood, you know, because there's different perspectives, and it was really nice to bring the elected officials together. So that was one benefit.
Mike, how many of these have you done, and how many of them have been implemented so far?
So we've done, I mean, I've been part of the strategic planning. So this process and how we did this for Newburyport was our first, but we had over 750 participants. So we have a lot of veteran school committee members that went through the process this way, and they felt it was very successful because of the participants we had.
Has it been completed? Does Newburyport have their strategic plan, and is it public? Is it something that we can look at?
It's up on our website. You can definitely check that out. And yeah,
On the homepage, there's a drop-down link. You can see our strategic plan and then an annual report update, or I could also send links to Superintendent Bauer.
And another question is, this methodology, is it following some kind of framework where does this framework come from? Is this yours, or is it something that's been done nationally?
The framework is from Amy Webb, who is a researcher from NYU, so we worked with her at the beginning of the process. She had a colleague come and facilitate, who was actually there with our city council and our school committee. So it is a future forward. You can find her article in the Harvard Business Review. I can send that to you as well on this particular cone approach. But it's a strategic planning process that I think is innovative to be using for a school district, a little bit of a different model that we found to be very successful.
Okay. And I'm guessing
They use it all
she's
the
done this
time with
across
corporations.
And she's done this across many districts as well.
No, we're her first school district.
Oh, you're the first
Yeah.
one. Okay.
Yeah.
she's works with Fortune 500 companies.
Right. No, I'm familiar with it from a variation of it, but I'm just wondering, when was this completed in Newburyport? and if this is the first model, like, there's really no proof of success. It's just a new model that's been implemented, but we don't know what the outcomes are yet. Is that fair to say?
I think you're gonna know what the outcomes are, but what I think it does for your community, it really, I think, aligns a lot of the work that you're already doing. So your specific outcomes for Danvers, you're gonna see within the first year. You know, it just really sets the strategic planning is gonna set your vision. You're gonna have a lot of stakeholders, and then it really just sets your course so that when you have the end of the year reports, as you're reporting out that data, you're gonna see where it ties together. So it's really, like, every strategic plan is, once it's created, it depends on the community and the follow-through. What we loved about this, for us, was it's a living, breathing document. Like, so when you look at our budget reports, when you look at everything on our website, it ties directly back to the strategic planning. And when you have buy-in that we had with over 750 people, it's a strong message set by the community. So it really guides the entire district. So I would say the success depends, you know, on your community and your district. But I think what this will help Danvers Public Schools, it will set a clear expectation and a clear vision, and then allow you to adapt and to be flexible depending on what happens. Like, for example, knock on wood, hopefully it's not another pandemic, but anything that can disrupt a school system like a pandemic, your vision is still set. So it's, you change your tactics, but you're still meeting the, you know, your goals for the vision.
You know, the targets and goals that we work with now, when you hear Dan or Mary talk about something, we're doing this because it relates to goal 3 of this. So I think that we are used to sort of working that way and tying things together, and I've often seen really great connections. The difference I see here is the number of stakeholders. When you talk about 750 people being involved, we had, I think, you know, one large committee and several focus groups, but the scope of the information and the number of stakeholders that you were involving in, you involved in Newburyport clearly, and what this type of planning seems to envision, that's going to be a real difference for us.
Yeah, we found it pretty successful, so.
It's definitely an iterative process too. You know, like one thing that we've been really working on this year is bringing that vision piece to life. So our portrait of a graduate is on paper. We have agreed upon the words. That took us a whole year to get there. And then, so how do you make it a living, breathing idea that people within the community actually know about? So one of the things that we did this year as a part of our plan was to have ambassadors at the high school who helped us to define, like, what does it mean to look back on my 12 years? How am I a portrait of the graduate? And they presented to our faculty in January, a panel of 15 students to 450 staff in Newburyport Public Schools, kind of on how they thought they were the portrait of the graduate and what experiences had brought them there to that. So I do think that what this approach to planning has done for us has allowed us to continuously revisit it, talk about it. It's words that guide us. We have found it to be very successful. I think this is our 3rd year out from the initial. It's been about 4 years since we did the initial. The initial took us a year, but we found the Amy Webb model to really be, I think, what's helping us to articulate to the community how it all fits together, and then to continue to build on it.
Gabe, through you to Dan and Mary. New superintendent, new strategic plan makes perfect sense. Presently, do we already require our educators to align a performance goal with the plan that's in place, and then they have flexibility with another goal for their own personal, let's say,
Yeah, the professional practice goals, pretty much. But what we try to do is we do the educator goal aligns to school improvement plan, the school improvement plan aligns to the district plan.
So they're
the-
used to that.
So the data that I presented tonight, it was actually in the elementary school improvement plans and the middle school improvement plans and the high school. So it kind of was a summary of, the whole district, I'm talking to my hands, the whole district plan.
Thank you.
But it's just like what they're talking about, exactly what they're talking about.
If I could weigh in on this too. I just think it's important that we're able to, strategic plan is there, and just looking back through my analysis, obviously COVID changed a lot of things, and certainly some of the targets, we're not even there, but then is this applicable right now? And I think every budget decision we make should be related to this strategic plan, right? Every staffing, right? Personnel, curriculum decisions. If we have that as our base, built off the vision that everybody comes together, that's just going to make us so much stronger. Because I think, and I'll show you in my entry plan findings, like there's a lot of great things already in place, but we know we need to move and keep pushing forward, right? We know there's a lot of room for growth, but having this as our anchor, I think, is critical. And this year was a holding pattern for a strategic plan, just knowing we're going through a transition, so all of our improvement plans connected to that. But the relevancy to me, and I'll talk more about it in the entry plan findings, is really that vertical alignment through our district. But then when we go and we make budget proposals, it's because it connects to X, Y, and Z, right? And I think that's going to be very big for us moving along, but also knowing every year you have an action plan that relates to it. And looking out, we don't know what's going to happen 10 years from now. And as Sean and Lisa said, there are many jobs today that weren't around, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and that's going to be the case even further on, 20 years down the road. We don't know what that's going to hold, but at least are we doing what we need to do as a district to push us forward, and that in itself will ride with the achievement that we need to push to. So that's what's exciting to me, is this all comes back to, and I think you said it, like there's a lot of things that we've done, but also the thing from the educator piece is that it seems like there's a million things. If we can streamline as best that we can, I think that would be more effective in the end, and that came through in a lot of the findings too. Is people want to do the work, but they're being stretched in a lot of different directions. Sorry, I didn't mean to keep going on.
No, perfect. Anyone else? All right, thank you.
All right, thank
very much.
you guys.
Thank you both.
This looks like it's going to be fun. And before I forget, I'm not sure if anyone is around from the community. Any items of interest? Okay, I see none. Let's move on to unfinished business.
Okay. Through the chair, I would recommend the approval for the security camera policy for a second reading. So I put back into the folder the security camera policy as well as the memo from our last discussion. The highlights of this camera policy is that it mirrors many different policies through different districts at the advisement of our council, just to ensure that we have security cameras in our buildings, we have them throughout, and just to ensure the management and essentially the ownership, and just be very clear in the specifics with it. So it's important that we have this policy. So nothing has changed from the first reading.
I would move that we approve the security camera policy for a second reading.
Second. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Can I get a yes?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries.
Thank you very much. The second piece of unfinished business is the recommendation of the approval of the updated bullying prevention and intervention plan for a second reading. There were a couple of updates in terms of that because there was a process that we have to receive feedback. And that goes more under the resources that have been updated. The policy should be updated every 2 years. This wasn't, but we had the vetting of our council to go through and bring the current changes in the law, but also the resources that are actually reflected. So that page changed from the first reading, but it essentially is the same document. And it's important that we have, the timing of this is great in terms of being able to put it into our handbooks, and also having an opportunity to share this with our community as well.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I have
motion, we accept the bullying document for a second. Was it the second reading or just in general?
For a second reading.
The second reading. Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, reading through the policy, I think that the improvements are there. I think the fact that there's a focus on safety initially, making sure that the victim is safe, even if that means separating them completely from the alleged perpetrator. Some people will look at the policy and there are frustration points. For instance, if you are a family, for example, of a victim is not going to get to know and doesn't get to know now what type of disciplinary action is taken. Under privacy laws, that simply doesn't happen. I think we recognize that bullying has been a continual concern, and we still hear about it at different grade levels. It's an awful thing for a child to be bullied, and we are trying to do everything we can to prevent it. But really, so much of this, and here's where I editorialize, so much of this really comes down to the parents and setting standards for your own child's behavior and being able to have consequences when students don't meet those or your children don't meet those standards. It's not easy, but as schools, we can have policies in place, we can try and be vigilant, but much of this has to happen with behavioral expectations that are outside of our realm, whether it's home, church, neighborhood groups, whatever it might be. This is really a community issue that has to be solved in good measure by the community. Thank you.
I agree. Safe and supportive schools is not going away from school improvement plans. That both of these pieces support that, and for that reason, I support it.
Any other questions or comments? I guess I just have an open question in regards to the policy. I do understand the privacy component, but I'm wondering if there's any mechanism to give some type of closure to, especially to victims, because the families tend to never know. They're kind of just left in a vacuum. Like, we hear you, we've addressed it, but is there some kind of mechanism or a way of providing closure without violating the privacy policy? Because sometimes it just seems to be left hanging, and there's a lot of frustration because it feels that lack of closure feels like inaction. And I've heard a lot of parents complain about that, but also have to, respect the privacy component. Is there anything we can do?
Yes, certainly within and that's why this is important, to ensure that we are following this policy, in terms of the notification, in terms of the investigation, and in terms of bringing closure with notification. Now, the notification closure will indicate, there's a finding, or if there's not a finding, depending on what the investigation. It won't go into specifics in terms of discipline for the child or anything else, but it will say that, there has been action taken, but it does protect the privacy laws. But I think having that in writing and ensuring that all of our administrators follow this, I think it's really incumbent upon us to ensure that we communicate this policy clearly with all of our stakeholders so they know what is the mechanism for filing a bullying report, right? What happens when you file a bullying report, and then what is the outcome of the bullying report? Because I do too understand, back in my role as a principal, assistant principal, there's often frustration to see, like, we've come this far, what has been the outcome? And unfortunately, there are some limitations, but there is specific notifications. And the attorney that we've been working with is great in terms of the templates and formatting of those letters to communicate that out in terms of what has happened, without getting into specifics of the individual, because you can't, but to bring that type of closure as best as possible. But I think it's really, really important that, again, as we go into the start of the school year, we're able to share this information so people know, how do you file a report? Sometimes I found, just coming in, that's not always clear, right? And there are many different ways that a report can be filed. And then once a report is filed, what does that process look like? What is the communication, notification of the beginning of that, as well as the protective measures, as Eric said, that have to take place? and then, what is the resulting action? So that's very important.
I think a key part in what you're talking about too, Gabe, is follow-up to make sure that there really is closure, in the sense that, you address the incident, but are we checking, and part of the policy requires checking in again with the student to see how things are going. So, I mean, it's, that part's important to the closure, in the sense that the parents can have some confidence that it's not just, okay, we're done, put it in a folder and it goes away. We keep kind of eyes open for things continuing and checking in.
Well, and that's a big piece too, because as we know, retaliation.
Yep.
And that's, everybody's on notice once an investigation begins. And if there's any retaliation of any form, then that ramps up to a new level even after there's a conclusion. Hugely important.
You're right, that's an issue, Gabe. I've heard that from parents too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to make a motion for approval of a second reading with the opportunity for feedback on the bullying policy.
Okay, do we have a second? A second. We have to have a discussion.
We did it twice.
We did it twice.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't change it. That's okay.
All right. All those in favor of a second reading with an opportunity to review, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And, all right, motion carries. Where are we? Bullying policy. Oh, superintendent evaluation update.
Okay, so at this time, I appreciate the patience of the committee as we've gone through transition, but also it's been a very busy spring. I did submit the evidence of the goals as well as the 4 standards for the evaluation process to the school committee. So knowing that is said, and also the documentation for the actual evaluation. So looking forward to any feedback, open to sitting down at any time if you wish to discuss any aspects of that, and looking forward to the 24th, if that's appropriate, for the public evaluation.
Yeah, absolutely, and this is something that Mr. Crane, Mr. Kapnis, and myself are involved in, but we'll be fully transparent with the new members of our school committee. I have the completed assessments, and we'll have a readout on the 24th when we get together, and it's a very thorough assessment, so thank you for putting in all that work, and we will be thorough when we come back.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
No problem. Now the entry plan findings.
Okay. Let's see if this works. Okay, just in the previous meeting, I did provide an update in terms of the goals of the entry plan, which really, quite frankly, is to ensure a smooth transition into the district and create a structure for feedback, and really set the foundation for the vision, which I think we're at that good point where we can move forward with that. And this is one of my goals, is the superintendent's entry plan. And tonight I'd like to share the findings with you. So this really is a holistic approach, because there were a lot of visits to schools, opportunities to meet students and staff, attended a number of different meetings with different stakeholders, and certainly had a chance to meet with other community groups as well. And everything that ranges from our HRIC, CPAC, and the different committees within the community, DEEP, Rotary, Lions, Danvers Cares. And I was really able to take the feedback and then couple it with the analysis of the documents, that there's a ton of them, everything from the strategic plan on down to the district improvement plans, on down to NEASC accreditation, and through, that I really took this all into place. And then I think the other piece too is this is going on, is developing that relationship with the school committee, right, with the town, the different entities of the town, as well as the various groups, not only for the feedback, but just further relationships, because feedback really shouldn't be a one-off. It should be a continual cycle, right? And I know that we're at the end of year 1, but I'll tell you that the findings really are based on, the interviews, feedback, observations, data, document review. And honestly, there's a lot of structures that are fundamentally in place. And I know that we know there's room for improvement, there's more work to do, and I think that's been the consensus throughout. the various themes that stood out through the entry plan itself. And this does tie in well with the strategic plan, which, getting the first step of launching in June with really, helping us map out in direction through the various stakeholders, family, community, students, and staff, and surveys. There are actually 6 major themes that really, and none of these are surprises, by the way. These are things that we've talked about continually over the year, some more than others, but these are major themes that, through conversations, through meetings, through document analysis, that really stand out. And I'll break down each one in terms of the findings, and really, there were some areas that really needed action plans to take place this year. Traditionally, you wait until then, but there were some things that just needed immediate attention. So I'll start off with our student achievement, and knowing that there's a lot of work to be done. We've done a lot of things, but I think the data is the data. When you look at the MCAS data, we know that we're at state level with ELA in terms of our 3 different levels, elementary, middle, and high school. But certainly we can improve in that. And our math at the elementary is a little bit above the state level, grade 5, but areas of concern, math levels in terms of the MCAS data, we're below the state at the high school and middle school, and knowing that we're putting steps in to improve that, no question, but we know that's an area of focus, and it has been. And when you look at our subgroups, our students with disabilities and low income as examples, those levels are below the state average, and we know we need to address them. We are working on that piece, so I don't think there's any surprise in any of these findings. We've talked about them at our school committee meetings and subcommittee meetings. And when you look at the strategic plan goals for the MCAS, which was created, more than 5 years ago, there were some targets that we didn't meet. But again, that in itself, back 6 years ago compared to now, there have been some changes. So I think when you look at our NEASC report, our high school has shown lots of areas that they've grown, but there's more areas to grow. And I think we really need to dive down into the school-based data, right? MCAS is fine, it serves a purpose, but it's terminal. It's terminal, it's not active. And as Mary talked about the formative, where it's instantaneous, right? So when you deal with how do I change and adjust instruction throughout the year? So when you have the iReady data at the middle school, right, you get 3 different components. You have an opportunity to make changes during the year. When you have the DIBELS at the elementary, the same thing. When you have the formative and summatives at the high school, that gives you an opportunity within that year. Right now, we're waiting for next year's MCAS data. It's already painted a story and a picture. So I think we really need to focus hard on our school-based data, because that gives us more information quickly for improvement. And then you look at the other traditional high school data, the PSAT, which shows a lot of growth, but certainly lots of areas of improvement, AP and SAT data. There's tons more, but I think we really need to focus more on that school-based data. And that is, I think, meaningful to teachers, it's meaningful to families, it's meaningful to students, because that's there and now. Kids have already taken their MCAS, they've already put it away, and it's gonna come back in the fall, but that is data that we need to really pay attention to, because that does set the skeleton for where we're going for achievement. So I think when you look at this, I'm not gonna read everything to you, but I really believe, we believe that the vision, the portrait of a graduate, the high school has one, right? They've already established this a few years ago, but we really need a portrait of a graduate for a pre-K-12. We really need to set a vertical alignment too, in looking to what skills do our students need when they walk out of our high school. And I think that needs to dovetail from when they walk in as pre-K all the way through. And we need to put in mechanisms that we can work with our staff and our schools, so there's that vertical articulation. That has to happen, because right now I see, and I think, again, this is no knock on our educators, because they work really, really hard, and that was very clear in the feedback. But I think now we're ready to push forward and make that transition even better, so when they come out of the elementary, they've already done work for that articulation, that vertical alignment for the middle school. Then when they get out of the middle school, they know when they move to the high school. And that's work that we need to focus in on. And I think that will help move the achievement within our district, for sure. At the elementary, they've already put in the MTSS, right? And I've seen those blocks. I've been there. It's all hands on deck. It truly is. And that has already shown the data right now, the improvement. So I'm looking forward to seeing the terminal data with the MCAS. ST Math, kids are crazy about it, but that shows a direct correlation to MCAS improvement, right? Again, it's not all about the MCAS. That gives data live that teachers can see that they can make adjustments to. At the middle school, it's basically kind of bringing the ship back around, establishing routines, working really hard in math and ELA, which they have been. There is a joint committee to look at the schedule to make sure that it's efficient to really meet the students' needs. So there's a lot of work that's been going on, and you can see by their iReady scores, there's been improvements, but we clearly know there's more room to grow. There's no question. At the high school, one of the things, the 1-8 Foundation gets back to that project-based learning where kids really can take their learning, get their hands, dig into it, and that really is experiential learning, which that was a strategic plan goal, to have that across the district. And we, COVID, and I know my own experience before I got here, it kind of wiped that out. There's no excuse for it, but now the high school's really diving into this, and I know they've been working with the middle school to bring that in as well. So I think looking at that risk, you asked the question about the middle school, diving into tier 3, they're doing it the high, that's critical. So that's gonna address some of those subgroup needs. So it's happening, but we need to keep pushing the envelope. In terms of student and staff expectations, the vocal data, which is the views of climate and learning, that's connected with the MCAS, so there's a number of questions they answer, and we take that data and look at what's happening with our student expectations through a number of different lenses. And we've seen some growth, probably not as much as where we need to get to, but there's also other mechanisms of feedback that we can use. And Mary pointed out the panorama surveys, which can provide more detailed, specific school data that we can use throughout the year, which right now we're waiting for the vocal data, and it's kind of put away. So we need something now, which we've joined Panorama, so we're in good shape there. And staff, the same thing of using their feedback, right? And I think we can do more, and I can do a better job of that too as a superintendent. I know the schools, they're building more feedback from the educators. So I think in terms of the staff expectations and the student expectations, there's room for growth in there. But I will tell you that, the group is working hard. I think the kids are when I go in and I see the classrooms, but I know that we're ready for that next push. And again, the next 2 slides, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. That's the vocal, the engagement, safety, and environment, and those are important data points, but we need to do more of that localized data with the panorama. Right? So I'll pause there. I don't know if it helps to pause in each theme or do it at the end. Whatever the will of the committee is.
I'm good.
Sense of belonging, and there's a lot of repetitiveness with Mary's presentation because this is a huge core value, and we're working really hard on this. But we need to dig deeper into our school culture and climate. So there's other indicators. The chronic absenteeism, we've really dug into that because that reflects what's happening a lot of times with our students with school avoidance. The surveys that are happening here, the peer survey and the discipline data that we're looking at, it's all connected, and we need to continue diving into that. The culture responsive practices were huge, and Mary pointed out that really this has been going on for 3 years. Creating that environment where students see themselves through the curriculum, and they also see others through the windows, and that's so important. And there's tons of recommendations for implementation that Mary covered that I think are huge to build that sense of belonging. I just wanted to put some feedback from the staff, and I had some feedback that I sprinkled in, but in the elementary, our diversity and anti-bias read-alouds were excellent. We have admin and support from teachers with both time, materials, and resources. The staff work cooperatively, sorry, I can't speak, to support students and each other. And then the implementation of the MTSS block, valuing diversity and SEL education. There's a lot more feedback, but there was a lot of the teachers, on board, and there's been a lot of work before I came here, and we'll continue that work. And then the recommendations from the CRPLA, Leadership Academy is really the equitable learning environments, right? Just to ensure that our frameworks and our structures match, right? And that goes down to even diving into not only the curriculum, but in terms of diversification, in terms of our hires, and looking at those that can foster that environment, as well as developing better systems for processing and examining data at the school level. There's a lot of work going on. So the next slide in terms of what's happening at the elementary, the middle, and the high school is great, but we need to continue that work. And I think, it has made a difference. And that does tie back to the bullying policy, by the way. It pulls back into the climate, what's happening in our schools as well. So it all relates. Communication was an area that a lot of this was, when I came aboard, I heard transparency, lack of transparency. What are the lines of communication to staff, to administration, to families? Have we celebrated enough successes of our school district? You know, is that multiple modes? The website, the press releases, our communications, frequency, and school levels, right? A lot of it comes out of the high school, but there's lots of successes at the elementary and middle. We need to celebrate those, not only for the fact that it validates the hard work by our students and staff, but also appreciation of the cooperation from our town and from our families. And we need to do more of that. The website, we did improve the website and revamped it, which is outstanding. Social media, we're looking for ways to keep diving into that. We have a stipend position for our district level and also for the website that helps improve content on our social media, but also communications to the community. I know we do different communications, the weekly update and things as needed, but also looking at consistency of communication from our schools. I know our principals send out communication, but I feel that there's more work that needs to be done in this area. We've made some progress, but definitely more areas to go, because effective communication reduces anxiety, but also builds confidence, which connects directly to our schools. School safety was another area coming in, heard a lot of things about. And a lot of it was just clear communication with emergency events. Certainly going back to last spring, we had the issue over at the prep as well as at Smith, but it impacted that school, and there were a lot of concerns in terms of consistency of communication. Where's that communication? And honestly, it really moved me to hear the feedback, because one of the things is trust, right? We want our families to trust when their students are here that we're doing everything that we can, and our staff is dedicated to that. But we know we can improve school safety. That should always be on everybody's cycle, right? So we did establish the safety committee. We expanded the stakeholders. Next year, we're bringing aboard InformaCast, which is a way that we can communicate immediately if there's a crisis mode, whether it's on the cell phone, whether it is on the computer. And that's a huge thing. Other districts have it. We're bringing it in. And that came out of our safety committee. Increased communication. We increased the walkies at every school, which really doesn't sound like a big deal. It's a huge deal. And we still have more work to do there. Our safety glossary review in terms of the primary communication modes during an emergency, where people know exactly what those are. And then coming is our district threat assessment team, which we should have had, but doesn't matter. We will have one in the fall. We have a group that's working now that by and large, if there is a perceived threat or something that comes aboard where a teacher may overhear something, or a student might overhear, or even a parent, we have a mechanism where we have our trained experts in our district that can deal with that. To go through it and find out, is it actually a threat? If it is, what steps do we need to take? If it's not, let's move it on and process it out. Those are important things, and there's still more to go with their school safety. And then student services is a big piece too, where a lot of the concerns just were the direction of student services. There was lots of family feedback, staff feedback, that I included some of that feedback, just increasing behavioral needs and learning needs of our students, special education not being heard. There's much that needs to be heard, and there's not enough OT, CODAs, PTs, and services for our students in the district. And knowing that, and I didn't put as much of the family-specific feedback, but I did meet with families, and I heard from families, and doing a lot of work with CPAC lately, and knowing that there's a lot of work to do, and we have great educators, and we have some great administrators, but we've really worked to address, and it's taken a lot of our time. And one of the charges from the town is to improve programming, to ideally reduce our out-of-district placements, but also, more importantly, to improve our programs so students stay. So we did wind up working on an action plan, and it's not done, but currently looking to improve our specialized programming, the autism strand, therapeutic language-based, phased-in approach. We came out with a large proposal for the town, but knowing we couldn't bring everything into 1 year, we took a pretty good piece, and thankfully the town has supported, the school committee, number one, supported, and our stakeholders, but the town supported our budget increase to bring these positions over from both ESSER and create new ones to build a better base. Restructure of the leadership, which is happening, and thanks for your support. The pre-K audit, restructuring of the elementary specialized programming, and then the special education audit that's ongoing. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done that is being done, and we identified this need early, but again, this is ongoing work, and we're still not there. The action plan in terms of moving the learning centers and the therapeutic, the pre-K and language-based is ongoing. And certainly knowing that that piece is needed so that we can not only work to improve collaboration within the programs, but also work to maximize our resources. And then the last one is budget and operations, knowing that that's always an area of concern coming in. Obviously, the increasing budget strains of transportation, special education, and then just dealing with inflation. So I think the real challenge is maintaining services while navigating these pressures. But I think one area that we need to really keep working on is oversight of the resources, right? Every resource that we receive is valuable. And that means ensuring that we're protecting and reviewing and ensuring that the personnel, materials, and goods, that we're doing the best that we can to ensure they're being used to 100% of their capacity. Then operations, just the basic procedures and protocols. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. We've been doing a lot of this for consistency purposes and for streamlining. So some of the things that we've done so far in operations, we've improved, and we're working on improvement of the onboarding process for new employees. The Enrollment Express, which is coming, which is great job with technology. This actually predates me. I can't take, and believe me, I should step back. I shouldn't get credit for all this stuff, because we're all working together. But the Enrollment Express is going to allow much quicker updating of student records and help efficiency, management of personnel and resources, reviewing the process with the administration just to ensure we keep good track of when positions move from building to building and if needs shift. Again, the audits. Transportation audit is in the works. We've been researching right now, and we'll bring it to the school committee for approval, but looking at ways we can improve and maximize transportation both in and out of district. Does that mean improving and building and adding to our fleet? Even down to looking at the routes, are we maximizing the routes? Because that all helps us, again, maximize our resources. And the budget building process, which I'm very proud of, I think we revised a lot of it with our own admin team and with the help of school committee, but knowing we can take that further for next year. And I left in this slide, you've seen the slide of special education costs, how we need to do the best, not only for our students, but to work to reduce the cost so we can keep the resources in district. And that last slide is that broader picture, when we broke it down to enrollment, the other district placements. Again, this isn't pitting special education versus general. The reality is, what can we do internally to improve our programming? We picked the strands, and we've been working on this piece. So I think with all of that, I don't think there's any surprises with the findings. I think it's setting us up for the next step for planning for our future. But all 6 of those themes, I think, can continue to live on. And they may morph into different things as we go. But I know that we need to, I'm very proud and I'm very happy to be here as a superintendent because I think there's a lot of really good things here. But I also know that next year is going to be the real work going into this for all of us. But I believe we have an outstanding staff that will rise, and they have risen to the occasion. And I'm talking about our admin team, our teachers, and our staff. And I also know that we need to improve more collaboration with our families as well. So there weren't a lot of surveys in this entry plan, which typically there are. But you get to a point where when the year runs out and running surveys, knowing we'll have some more through the strategic plan, I think timing is of importance. And sometimes I feel we get a little over-surveyed because there's enough holistic work that came out of this year that I think, I don't think anybody's surprised by these findings, but I also know that, again, I'm proud of what we've done in just this year, but I know we have a lot of work to do. So that's really it for my piece on the findings.
That was incredibly thorough. Thank you for all the detail on that.
Question? Was there, I know you said there were no surprises really, but were there things that you saw and you say, gee, I didn't realize, I'm a little surprised as to where we are on this in a positive way, or wow, we got a lot more work to do than I thought when you were considering coming here? Did anything jump out at you like that?
It varies. You don't know what you know until you actually get into it and start doing the work and digging it in, and certainly listening to families and listening to staff. And, there were some things that certainly were definitely further ahead in some areas, and some things not as much, but knowing, I think structures and such, and areas of procedures and protocols, with anything, when you have a change of administration, and particularly coming out of the last couple of years, is an area that needs to be a focus on. I do believe that, and I know in terms of student services, I don't want it to seem as a knock or anything like that, but there were some areas that needed to be more addressed, and we made some changes that, frankly, they've been challenging for sure. But I know that our team has risen to the occasion. So I think overall there was no surprise with communication. That's something that I saw coming in terms of really being able to, and I think we need to do more of that. We need to highlight even more of the great things.
Sure.
In terms of budgetary pressures, I've never negotiated a contract till this year, but very proud of the work that we did, but realizing the connection. But one thing that stands to me is that the support the town has in our schools. When that budget was passed, that was a major ask, and really kudos to our town administrator and on down to support. But with that comes the caveat that we need to perform and be able to validate that, to translate into improve for services for our students, and really keep building the confidence of our community.
I, for one, really, the level of work you put into this is obvious, and I appreciate it.
At the end, you said something that I think, you mentioned something that's very difficult, I think, to collect data on, and that's collaboration with parents. It's one of those things that, how do you collect data on that? But what is a healthy, positive family-to-school relationship look like? And that, in my opinion, that could just yield incredible results, especially when around achievement. It'd be interesting to sit back and put together a group to talk about strategies as to how to drive collaboration with parents going forward.
So if I could speak to that a little bit, if that's okay. I think, yes, and even the coffees that we ran early in the year with the PACs and collaborating with them and seeing, I definitely believe there is more avenues to increase participation and interaction. And I've talked with some families that would like to be able to do more in collaboration with the schools. I think that is an area of huge growth that we can go through. And again, it's hard to really put your finger on, like, what has led to, we're all busy and we know, there are things that are there, but I think it goes back to opening up areas and opportunities to allow that to occur. And I think that really falls in on our admin team working our way down. And I think the strategic plan is a great segue to looking for that and building that piece. Because I really think it's a partnership, right? It's the partnership with the schools and the community and the families, because we have to work all together. And I think that area, there's a large area for growth potential.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I'll say for being here for 1 year, I mean, and this is not taking anything away from you, Mary, because when you were in the role, you were everywhere, but you were very familiar with the community and the buildings, and the amount of presence and I think building trust and engagement in the community within your first year has been absolutely incredible. I don't think Danvers is necessarily a town that opens up its arms to just anyone, but the amount of effort you put in being present and building trust and being, I'll even say vulnerable, being open and honest with everyone has gone a long way. So I'm excited for the future. So I think everyone recognizes that, and we appreciate it.
Could I comment on that?
You sure can.
Thank you, Chair. But I do want to say that coming in, it's made me realize throughout the year, I'm glad you mentioned Mary, because I don't know how she did it for that year by herself. Because really, this is, how she was able to keep the district together through that turbulent time. And, it's certainly much easier because she's able to tackle a lot of the areas that she's done an outstanding job in many, many areas, and we're blessed to have her. And I know that, I lean on her quite a bit because not only does she have the expertise and the knowledge of the community, but she also has a real good understanding of people, right? And she has a strong set of core values, so.
Thank you, that's very nice.
It's true, it's true.
Let's enjoy it while the times are good. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, on to new business.
So I would like to recommend the approval of the Hewlett-Packard Chromebook lease agreement. Mr. James Sullivan, our Director of Technology, Digital Integration, was I close on the title? He has such a big title. But he is here tonight to discuss with the committee and would like your recommendation for approval, please. Mr. Sullivan?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Jim Sullivan, Director of Technology at Danvers Public Schools. We are at the point where we're refreshing the Chromebooks at Danvers High School. The students, we're coming to the end of the lease of the devices that we currently have there, and we've been exploring this year the upgrade and the refresh of those devices. So we're looking for, just the approval to move forward. We're going with a new model of actually a similar device to what they have, except the benefits of the new device are bigger screen. They're a little more rugged with some, some rubber edges and some Gorilla Glass to hope to keep the breakage and the damage down. But they're also still a flexible or a two-in-one style device. So they're they have the full touch screen, the ability to be used as a tablet and a touch screen and all of that fun stuff. So we, from an administrative standpoint, we did test several devices. We went out and we got quotes from different lease vendors that are on the state contract, so that we're make sure that we're compliant with our procurement. Town meeting, actually as required by general law, did vote to approve the Chromebook lease as well, because any kind of lease does have to go before the town meeting body. But we're excited to upgrade these devices and make sure that our students have what they need to continue to succeed.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve the Chromebook lease?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any
So-
discussion?
Yeah, so the contract, I think if I read correctly, is 400,000 and change over 4 years.
That's correct,
And
yes.
how many devices is that gonna get us?
I believe it's about 900 devices.
Okay.
So it covers the number of students that we have, as well as some of the administrative staff that need a device, and also to replace some devices that may break or be
Okay.
lost throughout the 4 years as well.
Glad to hear that, hopefully they're a little more rugged, because I know through the years, we've had to replace several and, damaged. And luckily, people can buy insurance fairly inexpensively for it, but, we've had some issues, so I'm glad to see these ones are gonna be a little more rugged, but, you obviously think the price is fair and you went to bid, so.
We did, yep, and it's
Sure.
it is procured on the public contracts as well. So
Great.
we did bring it to a couple of vendors to
Okay.
make sure that we get the best price.
Great. Thanks, Jim. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All those in favor of approval of the Hewlett-Packard Chromebook lease agreement, say aye.
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 Opposed, none. Motion carries.
Awesome. Thank you for your continued support. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your patience.
Take care.
Okay. Hard of Hearing program.
Yes, I just want to provide an update to the school committee. We've been investigating if there's an opportunity to set up a hard of hearing program in Danvers Public Schools. The idea would be to provide, have a provider actually provide the services for students that have the need. And we currently contract out with another school to provide services. But if there's a way we could develop an in-house program, we think that not only we can save in terms of the contract, but also improve services for our students and eliminate, there's some transportation costs with a few, but more importantly, improve services. And then that would allow for future growth that could be down the road, where potentially could allow for our person to do outside evaluations, but also the possibility of tuitioning in students or programs such as this. So we're going through the investigation process right now. I just wanted to keep the committee informed upon that piece, and I'll have an update on the 24th whether we're able to move forward this year or not. This is something that wasn't in the overall planning. It's kind of kind of come along the way. And there's a great need for this, so I will keep you informed in terms of, if there's any development that we can actually bring this to fruition this year.
So no need for a motion or a vote, that's just an update? What did you write there?
I wrote that the vote for the IABT contract, the
I just wanted to get the
instructional
letters
assistance
right.
behavior tech.
Okay, so we need a motion to vote on the IABT contract.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
This is the one, maybe give us a little background, and this is on the instructional assistance that we've settled as one of the collective bargaining units. And Dan and his team did a great job arriving at something that helps lift the, sort of raise the boats a little bit for the instructional assistance, and a reasonable and fair deal for the district as well.
Yes, so the instructional assistants were formerly known as the teacher aides. The behavior technicians are brought into the unit as well. So we feel really good about that, and kudos to the teamwork on both sides to improve services for all of our students.
Yeah, I'd like to applaud that effort as well. I mean, they are so critical, and it's really great to see that we were able to come to a fair agreement for all.
And they're taking a vote when?
Their ratification vote, I believe, it will be Thursday, I believe.
Thursday.
I was wrong. Never mind.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. We had a motion. All those in favor to approve the contract for IABT, better known as the teacher aides, say aye.
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 Opposed, none. Motion carries. And we are done with new business and order of business for the secretary.
Let me just pull this up here. So, I move to approve and release the minutes from the April 29th, May 3rd, May 13th, and May 24th regular meetings, and to approve but not release the minutes from the April 29th executive session.
Can we get a second?
Second.
We got a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Motion carries. All right, now for the consent agenda. Motion to approve the out-of-state field trip requests, middle school stipends, fundraising, and Ocean State job lots donation.
I move to approve the out-of-state field trip requests, middle school stipends, fundraising, and Ocean State job lots donation.
I second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Motion carries. Okay, and updates from the subcommittees. Do we have any updates today?
I'm not on one, so.
Okay, we'll have to get those.
And I think, I know.
End of the school year, it's kind of like
Yeah.
tough. It's a tough scramble.
I know Josh, when he was going through negotiations with the teachers, asked for one of us to reach out to the CPAC, and I would be more than happy if that hasn't been, as someone who works in special education, I think that's a good fit for me. I've already spoken to their new chairperson coming through, so if you guys are okay with that.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's a great idea. And I had indicated to you my preference. I think you asked me what preference I had. I don't know when we get these done, but we can have further discussion.
Yeah,
if
we
need
can
be.
figure it. We
Yeah.
can figure all that out. Right, so anything?
Danvers Human Rights and Inclusion. I know Dave McKenna has been named as the sort of temporary chairman, interim chairman, I guess you would say. I don't think that's changed since that happened, as Dee Joko is now on the selectmen.
Yep.
And other than that, I think the Pride event this weekend, I was not able to attend, but just looking at some of the photographs online, it looked like it was well attended and really went very well. I don't know if you were able to get there,
No.
Josh, but I mean, not Gabe, but it looked like it was terrific.
I think Sean, were you there?
No, I was at the Bubble Day yesterday, but I was not able to attend this past weekend.
How did Bubble Day go?
Bubble Day was fantastic.
Good.
The weather was
less than ideal, but the kids that were there were still having a great time and swimming in pools of bubbles, even though it was pouring on them. So they were already wet, so why not? But I think that I applaud the efforts of the people who put that together. I know there was a whole team of them, and Rebecca and Eric came last meeting, but I think they did a great job.
Fantastic. Is there anything else?
I have a couple of updates, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
I'll be
Yeah,
rather
yeah.
quick.
Yep.
So Deep concluded their year with the Breakfast of Champions that honored the retirees and also had a few award recipients, which is outstanding. Danvers Cares concluded their year of meeting where they had the Light the Night Purple, which was very successful. The Teen Health and Safety Guide is out, and they are doing a number of different recognitions and very successful year. The Safety Committee had their final meeting, and I think we accomplished a lot, which pointed out in terms of the entry plan. And then again, CPAC, thank you very much, Sean. CPAC had a forum with our new Director of Student Services, and we have planned on Thursday to do another orientation for the learning centers moving to Smith, and they'll be part of it too. So I think that covers everything.
Awesome.
If I can, I was.
Yep, go ahead.
Just add one thing, and I was a little remiss. I mentioned graduation. One of the highlights, in my opinion, of graduation were the student speakers. I thought they did a phenomenal job. It's just great to hear our students express themselves so eloquently and, meaningfully. It was really impressive. And to that point, I actually got to participate in the clap out on the prior day on Friday. And
Can you tell us what a clap
so the
is?
clap out is when the graduates go back to their sending elementary school. And they wear their cap and gowns and they walk through the halls, and all the students line the halls and clap for them. And it's emotional. I couldn't believe how many the emotions were flowing. Dads and moms, kids. It was really powerful. We have great elementary schools. It's such a great foundation for our students, and you really do feel like you come home. And I hope that never ends. It's a great thing. So one of my three got it. The other two are now jealous, but it was great. So it was fantastic.
That is really, really cool.
That's great.
I'll have
Kudos to the
try see
principals
that.
and staff for making that happen.
Yeah, I'll have to.
They actually had a gown for the tiger, right?
Yes,
Thorpe
they
Tiger.
did. Yes, they did.
The
Thorpe
graduation
had the
gown.
had the cap and gown.
Well, if you don't mind me interrupting again, I'm
Good,
sorry,
good.
Chair, but also to that point, we should point out the work of not only the high school administrative team for this, the music, the DPW, that really
yes.
did an outstanding job setting up and breaking down.
Agreed.
Definitely.
Now I'm done.
No, all right. Excellent updates across the board. Our next meeting will be this Friday, June 14th. It will be a virtual meeting at 8 a.m. And our last meeting, right, is June 24th, which is also a virtual meeting. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I second that.
Discussion? Okay, good night, Danvers. Thank you.
Got to take a vote?
Oh, we got to take a vote. All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none? We are adjourned.